Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior.
Welcome.
It's time for The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Some of the greatest adventures of my life are sitting in this museum.
Big deal.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Oh, your teacher.
Part-time.
Mr. Henry Jones, Jr. of Princeton, New Jersey.
I like Indiana.
We're named the dog Indiana.
Now, what shall we talk about?
Now, welcome IndyCast listeners and further fans to the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. I am Joe Stuber, joined as always by my IndyCast Further Adventures podcasting partner, my brother from another mother, Keith Voss. Keith, how in the world are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. I just got back from the space between spaces, you know. I've been traveling all over
every now and again. Yeah, no,
all over this summer, man. It's been crazy. The red line's been taking me everywhere.
Just here and there and everywhere. Yeah, you just got back home though, didn't you?
I just got back home. Yeah, it's been a bit of a busy summer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to meet you guys at Terrificon, unfortunately, but we're going to try to shoot for 2020.
You were there in spirit. We talked about Temple of Doom. You were brought up, obviously. So.
I appreciate that. Yeah. It's been quite busy. But again, I'm looking forward to getting back into the world of Indiana Jones with you and all of the listeners. But first, before we do that, I just want to give a quick shout out and a big thank you to both John Penman and our very own Indiana Mick for the lovely gift, the lovely Raiders fedora that I received the day before I flew back. So the red line took both me and the fedora back to Austria, and I will be wearing it in good health. So thanks once again, guys. Most appreciated for that tremendously generous gift. Thank you.
Always outfitting the Indy fans. With these screen accurate.
Right?
I mean, that's because it starts with the hat. It starts with the man in the hat. That's right.
That's right. It is a good start.
Well, we are talking about. We've talked about it quite a few times here on Further Adventures of Indiana Jones, but we are going to be talking about officially the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull comic book adaptation from Dark Horse Comics. Now, if you go back, Keith and I did talk to writer John Jackson Miller. That was on IndyCast episode 265. Also, cover artist. So on the collection, we've got the movie poster from Drew Struzan, but on the individual issues, Hugh Fleming did those amazing covers. So we talked to him on IndyCast 280. He did some other covers for some of the other indie comics as well. Keith reached out to Luke Ross a couple of times. Haven't heard back, so I don't know if he's not hanging out on social media or what the deal is, but we'll try. We'll keep trying, right?
Space between spaces.
Maybe he's in the space between spaces. He could be, yeah. So there's a lot.
And just real quick, though, those two Hugh Fleming covers are included in the collection at the back of the book. So if you don't happen to find the single issues, which you should be able to, let's be honest, they should be easily available out there. You will get those covers. No writing on them, just the actual artwork on. No title block, no credits on them. Beautiful pieces of artwork. They are in the back of the book for that 2-issue collection.
Yeah, and they're stunning too. And we talked about that.
They are stunning.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Well, if you don't know what happens in this issue, but you're probably well, maybe you're just new to Indiana Jones or something like that. It's Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. We know what happens. We know there's Akator, and we know there's all kinds of things. There's Spalko, and there's Dovchenko, and
there's monkeys.
There's monkeys. I don't think they're in the comic book though, are they?
Not in the comic book.
No. So if you like your Crystal Skull monkeyless, I don't know if that's a word. I guess this is the version for you. I don't know. It's Look, we're going to get into it. Let's at least talk about the creative team. We've talked about a few members of the creative team, but Keith, why don't you give us the official rundown?
Absolutely. Here we go. We got Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. With the original screenplay, of course, by David Koepp, but the adaptation was done by John Jackson Miller. The pencils were done by Luke Ross and Cliff Richards. The inks were by Fabio Laguna and Abra Ferreira. All the colors were done by Dan Jackson and Pamela Rambeau. Rambo. New Rambo movie coming out soon.
Last Blood. Yeah, Last Blood.
Last Blood.
Next to Last Blood. Penultimate Blood? Well, probably wouldn't have worked.
The letters were done by Michael Heisler. The cover for the collection was done by Juice Juizen, like we mentioned. And yeah, let's get into it. What do you say?
I have the collection. That's the one I have. I don't know why I didn't pick up the other 2 issues. I don't know. I think because I had the collection, I was like, well, what do I need the other 2 issues for? But I should get them because I'm an Indiana Jones completist, right? We all are.
Yeah, I did the same. And this was published by Dark Horse Comics on May 22nd, 2008. And Publisher Spotlight released the 2 issues, 2 for each cover as 4 individual 24-page hardcovers for libraries in August of 2009. But I mean, I only have those 2 original issues and then the collection. So
yeah. And my library, I checked. My library does have the hardcovers. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. So if you that's the cool thing about this issue is, if you just want to check it out, go to your local library. They probably have the hardcovers there, so you can check them out that way. But yeah, I love the artwork in it. It's there's a lot of differences. We can kind of talk about those as we go through. But one of the things I know we talked about with John Jackson Miller was some of the cool lines that he would throw in, like some the narration dialogue and things like that. There's a lot of cool things in this comic book adaptation. So if you haven't checked it out in a while. You want to take a look at it because there are some really cool moments. I know the movie gets knocked around a little bit. We knock it around ourselves on the IndyCast all the time.
We do.
But it's a pretty cool comic book adventure.
It is, and I have to say, like this book, this adaptation is very streamlined. So there's lots of things. Again, if there were things you didn't like about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the movie, then if you pick up the comic and you read through it, I mean, that whole opening with the groundhogs coming out and no groundhogs.
It's groundhogless and monkeyless.
It's monkeyless. There's lots of things that were kind of like, I mean, I guess for pacing and for there's only so much you could fit into a 24-page comic book, so a lot of things had to go, and I think some of the better things did go as far as
I agree. One of the biggest things I think was the Ark of the Covenant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have the Ark of the Covenant, which is why, I mean, that's the whole cool thing about why they're in the warehouse to begin with. Because even when they walk in, you hear in the movie, you hear John Williams' music playing, and you kind of, oh wait, this sounds familiar. What's going on here? And then you something's very familiar about this place,
And a little bit of a, I mean, the first time I saw the movie, I was wondering, like, are they actually going in there for the Ark of the Covenant?
Right.
I mean, and so when you actually do see what they're there for that magnetic shrouded or covered alien body, and then you get that little hint of the Ark, it's a nice callback. But I mean, just to be back in that familiar place at the end of Raiders. I always love the opening to Crystal Skull. Despite what many people say, that it's not like officially one of those adventures that leads into the main story, but it is actually part of the main story. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed that about this. I thought it was something different, and it was pretty action packed, and we get to explore that whole little area that was only just touched on at the end of Raiders.
But I know it gets knocked for that, but in the adaptation there is like sort of like a little pre-adventure. I'm like, Indy and Mac are, I mean, there's a reason they're in the trunk, and we see that there, although Indy has his jacket on this one, which makes more sense. This makes a little bit more sense because if they captured him from an adventure, him and Mac, that when you read the novel, there's a little adventure that's going on in the beginning there that gets sort of interrupted. But he would have the jacket and everything on, wouldn't he?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of weird because in the comic it says it's a strange place for a reunion when they when they open the trunk. So I guess did they capture Indy and Mac in different places for originally? Who knows? I kind of liked that the way it was presented here. But again, another moment that we lose is him putting that hat back on, him putting that fedora on, which I think is iconic, and that did not make it into the adaptation.
No, there are those iconic moments to be sure. One we do get, well, we sort like you said, we sort of have a truncated version of the warehouse chase. A couple of little differences. Indy gets to knock Dovchenko out, which is pretty cool because we don't really get a full-on fight with him later, so we get a little bit of it here. But we do get that iconic imagery of Indiana Jones in front of the mushroom cloud, which I like. And by the way, again, we do have the Nuke the Fridge. in here.
We
but
do have the
okay, again, and look, we've referenced Temple of Doom a couple of times, but to me, again, I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Once the raft goes out of the plane, he crash lands on a mountain, and he's like, all bets are off. Suspension of disbelief.
You know my feeling about the fridge. We've had conversations about this. Okay, I totally agree with you with the raft coming out, and of course, but at the end of Last Crusade, the man drank from the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
All of his injuries, all of his wounds, anything in his body that was breaking
Wolverine.
down was completely healed. He's got the body of a 20-year-old now, even though it's 1957, so that would make him about 58 years old.
Yeah, he's shirtless in the movie, so
man,
he's still rocking it at
good.
70. I guess he was.
The guy's
68.
bones are laced with adamantium. You know what I'm
saying? Right.
So I think he'd be able to survive that much better than a normal 57-year-old would have survived it.
Plus,
for sure.
Plus, as mentioned here in the adaptation, the fridge is pushed ahead by the shockwave.
Shockwave, exactly.
Yeah, so it wasn't fully engulfed. We're really apologizing for this movie.
We really are. I was just thinking.
We're such Indiana Jones apologists.
Oh man,
we're pathetic.
Anyway.
We're pathetic, but we love it. We love Indiana Jones. So,
of course we love it.
A little bit of a different dialogue as it takes place, and one thing we get the whole scene from the college where he's fired is taken out. It's just sort of referenced there.
And we get that one panel. Panel.
But what we don't get are the horrible images, these publicity images from Last Crusade as photos on the bed. So we eliminate that.
Goodness.
And one thing I think we talked about with John Jackson Miller is that last panel where Indy is sort of referenced, he says, "I'm sorry to hear that. I wish you had met someone like my wife." And then, or did you meet her already and not realize it? That plays into this book more so than the movie.
Well, I think there is a whole subtext throughout this adaptation that is not as prevalent in the film of him really finding Marion again.
And that's, I think, the
real
heart and
treasure.
soul, right? Because even at the end, he references that, which isn't in the movie. I already found what I was looking for. Almost a slight callback to Last Crusade, like, "What did you find, Junior?" And it's like, "What did you find, Dad?" Illumination. Yeah. So
right?
I think it's that character arc, that character development that is missing in Crystal Skull. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Here.
I think you
get
do.
It here in the adaptation.
Not
you
a
get
ton.
It here.
You're only going to get so
Not
much in a comic book, kids. But
right.
You do get that where he's sort of long, like, yeah, maybe I did miss something, and you're like, oh, something's playing out here. So if you're new to this and don't know that Marion Ravenwood is in it, that's a nice little line dropped in there that sort of weaves its way throughout the book. So I do like that. We get. I'm trying to remember in the scene in the diner. So he has the letter. I'm trying to remember specifically from the movie. Was the note from Mary Williams?
It was.
It was her writing it, right?
Yes, and I think it was written to. Oh, I know you can find the letter online. The actual
there's like
letter.
a close up of somebody did a screen grab of it.
It's out there, but I believe the letter was then written to him so that to Mutt, so that Mutt can take it to Indy to translate it
from Mary Williams, and that always kind of bothered me because
she would say, "It's Marion, Indy, get your butt down here."
Yes. Jones, get down here now. I'm in trouble. Yeah. Right. So I think that's one thing that always kind of, and again, the script proper is a mishmash of, 15 years of different scripts that worked its way through. So things got lost in the space between spaces in the script. But this is Oxley's letter. We have a picture of Oxley's letter, which is just gibberish.
And that one is to Indy.
Right. And she sneaked that out. Right. Mary Williams sneaked it out. So she didn't have time, apparently, on here to pen a letter or to write her name or anything. This one made a little bit more sense to me because if you just got this gibberish thing and it's from Mary Williams and he knows her as Mary Williams, that would make sense that maybe he didn't translate to, oh, by the way, it's Marion Ravenwood. Remember a few years ago in Raiders when you guys had that adventure?
Remember that whole Ark of the Covenant thing?
Yeah.
But Indy here in the adaptation says there were a lot of Mary Williams's kid. How many Mary Williams was he? Like, if he said there were a lot of Marys, that I get.
Yeah,
like, that
it was a pretty
better.
common name.
But, like,
yeah.
how many Mary Williams was he with? Actually,
the Lost Adventures of Indiana Jones, or
oh,
Indy After Dark, man.
Think about that, Indiana Jones and the 20 Mary Williams.
Yeah, but okay, so they get exactly. That's a whole other podcast. Okay, so we got the motorcycle chase, and Keith, one of the coolest things we've talked about a million times on this very show: deleted scenes in comic book adaptations.
Yes,
we get deleted scenes. What deleted scene do we have now?
Do we get one here? Well, at least one panel.
It's close enough.
It
shows that it exists.
It's there somewhere. Yeah, we get the football game.
Yeah,
we get the football game, which was supposed to be the quarterback throwing it, and as the car is driving, chasing them on the motorcycle, Indy catches the football.
Yeah,
catches the football. Right, crazy.
So if you had a problem with groundhogs at the beginning.
Then
you're probably gonna have a problem.
Honestly, though, would you have wanted that in the movie? Honestly,
probably not. No, but it's cool that we have it here.
I think that was a good choice. I think that was a good choice to get rid of that scene. But we don't actually get that whole him throwing the football and Indy catching it. We just get them going through the field. Yeah. Very quick, very quick panel there, which I kind of like. Something that does bother me slightly is that they didn't. I guess it just wouldn't play as well in a comic book. Was that when they hit the Marcus statue, the whole entire statue falls on the car?
Yeah.
But that's just nitpicking.
No, and we talked about that line too. About the Pittsburgh Steel. The New Hampshire Granite generally trumps Pittsburgh Steel. You know I got a problem with that.
Oh, I know.
Nothing trumps Pittsburgh Steel. Unless you're the New England Patriots. Unless it's, well, maybe, you know what? Maybe it does. Maybe it does.
That's a whole other podcast.
I stand corrected at this point. Okay, so, and, again, we talk about, things are going on. Again, the artwork. I want to talk a little bit about the artwork as we're going through by Luke Ross. I think we've established, you and I think Luke Ross, it's mentioned two artists, but I think Luke did the lion's share of the artwork in these issues. And I think it's pretty spot on. I mean, there's a couple of panels here and there. Like, actually, when we were just talking about the car hitting the Marcus statue, and then the next page there's a shot in the bottom left. There's a panel of Indy, and he looks just so goofy with the glasses are just drawn like. But it's again, that's very very it's touch and go there. It's not so often that you get a bad panel here, but every once in a while, it looks like maybe the art was a little bit rushed. Yeah. And then one of the coolest lines, I think, is the reference to mileage, not years.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, that was one of the things we talked about. So those little things are dropped in throughout. But, overall, I mean, it's pretty amazing, especially when we get to Akator. And we get angles in the comic book that we don't necessarily have in the movie. Like, you can see those amazing overhead shots, those sort of aerial views of Akator and all these different things. Yeah. So there's just different perspectives that you get in the comic books. And then again, a really truncated fight between Indy and Dovchenko, because to me that's one of my favorite parts in the movie.
I agree.
Is that battle, because you don't get to see Indy throw down a little bit on the motorcycle in a couple places, but boy, that knockdown drag out with Dovchenko in the movie, that's one of my favorites. At the beginning of the movie and then also at the end of the movie, really brief version of it here. And the ants, I don't think they're as
dangerous looking as they were in the movie.
The movie, yeah. But then again, people complain about the CGI in the movie too. So I don't know.
Right.
I kind of go
right.
And
even the goofiness of the three times it drops as well was toned down. It felt a bit more. I don't know. It felt like it flowed better, and I love the way that it was laid out on the page. You have the top. The top waterfall at the top, the middle waterfall and a panel in the middle, and then the final one. They're all kind of superimposed on one another. I really, really enjoyed that, and that's when we get that great line. Are you tired? You're not tired, are you, Indy? But it ain't the mileage, honey. It's the years. I love that.
Just
fantastic. And a couple of just like things that were just designed a bit differently, like through eyes I last saw in tears. It's kind of a more of a skull in the film. In this, it looks more like a sentinel out of the X-Men. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you get a little bit more detail on some of the paintings when they're inside the cave on their way to Akator, things like that. It's very slimmed down. I really enjoyed that about this. Something I really have to comment on. This is a 2-issue adaptation. As I was reading through it, I really felt that this was something that could have been in Further Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been in Further Adventures. This could be a story would have been perfect for that Marvel line.
I agree, and something we talked about. I think we mentioned Ron and I mentioned this at Terrificon this year was when we talked about because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came up, and I mentioned too that, and you and I talked about it was I think it was in issue 4 of Further Adventures when we had Stonehenge.
Stonehenge, where a man's a man and the children dance to the pipes of Pan.
And there was kind of that like space between spaces feel to this. There was like they weren't aliens, but they were these interdimensional beings or whatever. So it's like this has already sort of been established in the comic books. So
exactly,
could
be the same beings.
It could be the same being. Maybe Indy ran into these before in our minds. Maybe they did. A couple other cool things I want to mention too was during the jungle chase. There is some dialogue in there, too, that makes a little bit more sense. Again, some of that character development that may have been in one of the scripts that didn't make it in the movie, but where Mac and Spalko are kind of going back and forth, and he realizes that she does have telepathy because he said, she says, ask a question. He thinks a question like, are you going to cut my throat when this is all over? And she responds without him asking the question, what is it?
If I feel the slightest need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is an establishment of her character as that she is dangerous.
She is dangerous. I do feel that she is a bit more dangerous in the comic than in the than the actual film. And speaking of that, another thing that was included here was something I wish that would have been included in the film was when Indy does look into the skull and his eyes start to bleed.
Yeah.
Which is something that's very dark, and I really kind of wish that that's something that they would have left in the film just to show exactly the true dangers instead of like the eyes exploding when Spalko looks into the skull at the end, and she gets all of the knowledge. The interdimensional being gives her all of the knowledge of the universe, and her eyes just kind of explode. I really wouldn't have mind seeing that close up of Indy's face and just that one tear of blood come down. It would have just it
just amps up the danger level. Yeah,
it just ups it for sure.
One thing we do get though that I really like though, again during that jungle chase is John Jackson Miller dialogue. That sort of narration, and I love the part where he jumps from one vehicle to the other and says, for when Indiana Jones travels, he takes 2 kinds of vehicles, his and yours.
Yeah, I know you've always loved that one.
I love that line.
It's great, though. It's great, though.
It is such a cool thing. So, yeah, we've got a lot of good things here. I mean, the rest of the issue plays out pretty much like the movie. I don't know that there's any major differences. But we get to see a little bit more, I think, interaction with the interdimensional beings. Than we do, I think, in the movie. It almost kind of seemed like a close encounter, like an evil close encounter. I still don't know. Yeah. Like, were they evil?
You don't actually see the fully formed. You don't see it form into one being in the adaptation.
No, that's true. We see that in the movie. But did you get that they were evil or evil toward her? Because there's that look that
they were evil towards her. Indy mentions that the reason why that the skull is communicating with him and Oxley is because that they're teachers, and that when Indy finds out that the interdimensional beings were archaeologists, so they were collectors, that they were also teachers, which is why they don't communicate with Spalko. They see her as just another conquistador.
Yeah, and that's not really made clear in the movie as much.
Right.
And then you do have that one that like the alien or interdimensional being like turns and they look dark. They don't look benevolent.
No, they don't. You definitely, but however, the reason why they came to the planet was to kind of help with, farming and all kinds of,
That's what I thought, because they're archaeologists. Right. India establishes
here to help our advancement, so to speak, and so I guess they weren't bad, but I guess the fact that they've been sitting there for thousands of years has made them a little cranky. And look, they're thin. They're thin as a rail.
They haven't eaten in a while.
They're hangry. They're hangry interdimensional beings. They want to get out of there. Head to the intergalactic Burger King. Get themselves an Impossible Whopper and call it a day.
Sandwich. Get these guys a sandwich.
Right, you know.
Hey, so overall, I think for the comic book adaptation, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to give it a positive review. I like it. I enjoy it.
Same here. I like it very much. And for those who didn't like the flying saucer either, at the end, you get an orb.
It's an orb. Yeah, I don't know if it's any better.
I have to give it a positive review as well. I mean, again, if you're a fan of the further adventures of Indiana Jones and you read it as like maybe a continuation, just another adventure, you're gonna maybe enjoy it a bit more. Who knows? I mean, I know that I enjoy the movie for what it is. But when I do read the adaptation, I have to say, had they had made some of these changes for the film, I might have enjoyed the film a little bit better.
I agree. And hey, why don't we? I know we sort of put this out there too to get everybody's thoughts on the adaptation. We did get a couple of comments on our Facebook page. I wanted to reference that too. Axel Wellner wrote, "I love the movie. I'm a big fan. I did not read the comic until after the movie. I remember that the drawing style of Indy was very unstable. Sometimes it was smooth, sometimes very wrinkled." Well, I mean, you mentioned that too. It's
yes.
Unfortunately, the fight with Dovchenko was very short. I wish it was longer than in the movie. But the style of how the ants and the crystal skull were drawn was cool. Overall, I found the color palette is very consistent and beautiful. The story was the same as in the movie. Hey, thanks for writing in there, Axel. We want everybody's reviews, by the way, so make sure you get those into it. But yeah, I think we're kind of on the same comic book page with there. And we also heard from one Mitch Halleck. He wrote, "I own the original art pages with the New Haven chase, so I like that part." And we've got the Crystal Skull tour from Mitch, by the way. But
yes,
if you visit Mitch, he'll take you on a Crystal Skull tour, so that's pretty cool. So you can check out our Further Adventures Facebook page. We got a whole photo album in there of Keith, myself, and Mitch.
Getting yelled at by people.
3 jobless losers getting yelled at. Why do you guys have all this time? Yeah, and getting yelled at for your vegan sandwiches. So,
right, that's right.
So we appreciate folks writing in. But yeah, I think we. It's safe to say I think a lot of us like the adaptation better than the movie. Maybe in some parts. I don't know. Exactly. But I do love those knockdown dragouts with Dovchenko in the movie. Those are pretty cool. So I look forward to that.
If you want to get the full experience, just watch the movie, then read the comic book, and then everybody's happy.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
All right, kids. Just like Oriana and his men, that about wraps things up for today.
Oy.
Too soon, Keith? Too soon?
Yeah, a little too soon.
Keith, as I mentioned, we want to hear from folks, whether it's your review of the comic book adaptation of Crystal Skull or the Dark Horse Years of Comics or Further Adventures, whatever you want to talk about. Keith, how can they get a hold of us?
Like always, just drop us a line at thefurtheradventures@gmail.com. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Leave your review for the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull comic adaptation. We want to hear your thoughts. And there's going to be some more news coming very soon, isn't there, Joe?
There is. And hey, next time we get together, Keith, oh my goodness, it's a good one. I've been waiting for this for a while, Keith. Indiana Jones, 1930.
Indy in the Snow?
Yes.
Brody? And?
Well, they call him Balosh.
Belloc. Finally, this is... We've been waiting for this. Oh, Keith, this is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to get together and chat about Dark Horse Comics Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1 with you.
Yeah, I'm also looking to that too. So if you don't have it, go out and get it. It should be easily available. Read along with us. And yeah, that'll be our look back at Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1 the next time on The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.